Chen stood in the conference room doorway for the third time that week, and for the third time no one looked up. He'd been hired 6 months ago, senior business consultant, international acquisitions specialist. The Seoul office needed someone who understood Western markets, someone who could bridge the gap between their expansion plans and execution. They'd paid premium rates to bring him in. But payment and respect were two different transactions. "Excuse me," he said in Korean, his accent minimal after 2 years of private tutoring. The senior manager, Director Kim, glanced up for half a second before returning to his tablet. "Meeting starts at 3, you're early." It was 2:58. Marcus stepped inside anyway, took the chair furthest from the head of the table, opened his laptop. The screen illuminated his face in the dim conference room as others began filing in. 7 people entered over the next 4 minutes. 6 Korean nationals, 1 other foreign hire, a British woman named Sarah who'd been there 8 months and learned to stay quiet. No one greeted him. Director Kim cleared his throat. "Let's begin, park your numbers from last quarter." The presentation started. Marcus watched the slides, cross-referencing against the market analysis he'd prepared 3 days ago. The one he'd emailed to Kim. The one that outlined exactly why their current approach to the European market would fail within 18 months. Park's slides contained the same flawed projections Marcus had flagged. He waited until the presentation finished. "Director Kim," Marcus said, keeping his voice level, "the European purchasing patterns don't support those growth estimates. I sent the corrected analysis on Monday." Kim didn't look at him. "Park's numbers come from our regional office, they have local expertise." With respect, the regional office is using data from 2022. The sanctions changed everything. The consumer base shifted, if we proceed with this timeline. "Thank you, Chen," Kim's voice was flat, final. "We'll take your concerns under advisement." The meeting continued, as if Marcus hadn't spoken. Sarah caught his eye across the table. She gave him a look that said, "Stop trying." He didn't stop. 20 minutes later, when the discussion turned to vendor contracts, Marcus spoke again. "The primary supplier you're considering has regulatory issues in Germany. I have the documentation." This time, Kim didn't even acknowledge the interruption, just continued speaking to Park like Marcus was furniture. The meeting ended. People filed out. Marcus closed his laptop slowly. Sarah waited by the door. "They're not going to listen," she said quietly once they were alone. "I stopped trying after month 2. That's not how this works. I was hired to consult, not to be heard. There's a difference." She adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "The other foreign hires before us, they lasted 4 months on average. You're already beating the record." Marcus walked past her without responding. His office was on the 8th floor, technically a good location, but it faced the maintenance area instead of the city view the Korean staff enjoyed. The desk was standard issue. The chair had a broken lumbar support no one had fixed despite 3 requests. He sat down and opened his email. 17 unread messages, 14 were automated reports, 2 were meeting notifications, 1 was from his mother. He opened hers first. "How's the prestigious job going, baby? Your father keeps bragging to the church about his son working for a major Korean corporation. We're so proud of you." Marcus closed the email. He opened the analysis he'd sent Director Kim on Monday, scrolled to the section about the European market collapse projections, 18 pages of data, market research from 3 independent firms, currency fluctuation models, consumer confidence indices. His phone buzzed. Text from Sarah, "Drinks tonight. Expat crowd is meeting at the usual place." He typed back, "Can't, working." Her response came immediately, "You're always working, that's the problem." He put the phone face down on his desk. The problem wasn't the work. The problem was sitting in meetings where his analysis was correct, his data was sound, his projections were accurate, and his voice disappeared into silence the moment he opened his mouth. The problem was watching Park present flawed numbers and receive praise. The problem was being paid like an expert and treated like a translator. 3 weeks passed. The European expansion moved forward with Park's projections. Marcus stopped attending the planning meetings after the 5th time his input was ignored. Instead, he documented everything, every email warning, every data correction, every projected failure point. He wasn't sure why. Maybe insurance, maybe vindication, maybe just the need to prove to himself that he wasn't incompetent. On a Thursday afternoon, Director Kim's assistant appeared at his office door. "Director Kim wants to see you." Marcus saved his work and followed her to the executive floor. The carpet was thicker here, the lighting warmer, the walls held contemporary art instead of company slogans. Kim's office had the city view Marcus had been promised during his interview. "Sit," Kim said without looking up from his computer. Marcus sat. Kim typed for another minute before finally closing his laptop. The European expansion is encountering delays. Marcus said nothing. Vendor regulatory issues, currency complications, consumer response below projections. Kim's expression didn't change. Park's numbers were incorrect. "Yes, you flagged this, in 3 separate reports, and verbally in 4 meetings. Kim leaned back in his chair. "Your contract expires in 6 months. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "I'm aware. We're restructuring the consulting division, budget reallocations." Kim pulled a folder from his desk drawer. "Your position is being eliminated." The words landed without impact at first, like watching something fall in slow motion before the crash. "When?" "End of month, 2 weeks. Kim slid the folder across the desk. "Severance package, standard terms, HR will process everything." Marcus didn't touch the folder. "You're firing me because I was right. We're eliminating the position due to restructuring. This isn't personal. Everything you just described, the European failures, those are the exact problems I warned about, the problems you ignored." Kim's expression finally shifted, not to anger, to something colder, dismissal. "The decision is final. You can review the severance terms with HR." Marcus stood, left the folder on Kim's desk, walked out. Sarah was waiting in the hallway. She must have heard through the office network. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be," Marcus kept walking toward the elevator. "I should have listened to you months ago." "What will you do?" He pressed the elevator button, something that doesn't involve being invisible. The severance was generous, 3 months' salary, continued health coverage, a glowing recommendation letter that praised his analytical capabilities and professional dedication, words that meant nothing from people who'd never listened to either. Marcus spent the first week apartment hunting. Sole rent was expensive, but he'd saved aggressively. He could survive 6 months without work if necessary. The second week he started networking, reached out to former colleagues, industry contacts, other consultants who'd worked in Korea. The responses were polite, encouraging, empty. "Great to hear from you. Let's definitely connect. I'll keep you in mind if anything opens up." No one was hiring. Third week he broadened his search, started looking at positions in Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, places where his expertise might translate differently, where being foreign might be an advantage instead of an obstacle. His mother called on a Tuesday. "Your father told the church you're transitioning to a better opportunity," she said. "Is that true?" "Something like that." Marcus, her voice shifted to that tone that meant she knew he was lying. "What happened?" "They restructured, position eliminated, it's fine." "It's not fine. You moved across the world for that job, you learned the language, you." "Moms," he cut her off gently, "I'm handling it. Come home, your father knows people, he can make calls." "I'm not coming home." Silence on the line. "Why?" she finally asked. Because going home meant admitting defeat, meant everyone who doubted him was right, meant his father's bragging at church would turn to quiet disappointment, meant surrendering the idea that expertise and competence mattered more than where you were born. "Because I'm not finished here," Marcus said. Fourth week, he got a call from an unexpected source. "Mr. Chen. This is Min-jun Park. We met briefly at your former company." Marcus placed the name immediately. Park's junior analyst, the one who'd actually read Marcus's reports and asked detailed questions before Park presented them as his own work. "I remember, what can I do for you?" "I'm leaving the company. Starting a consulting firm focused on international expansion. I need someone who understands Western markets and isn't afraid to challenge conventional thinking. Park paused. I'd like you to be my partner. Marcus sat down slowly. Your partner. Equal equity, shared decision-making, your expertise, my network. I've been watching how they treated you. It was wrong. You were right about everything, the European expansion, the vendor issues, all of it, and they buried your work because… Park trailed off. Because I didn't fit, Marcus finished. Because they couldn't see past their assumptions, but I can, and I think we could build something that proves them all wrong. Marcus stared at his apartment wall, at the unpacked boxes he'd never fully settled because some part of him had known this was temporary. Why now? Marcus asked. Why not months ago when I was still employed? Because I was afraid of losing my position, afraid of being associated with the foreign consultant everyone ignored. Park's voice was steady, honest. I was a coward, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm not afraid anymore. What changed? The European expansion collapsed last week. Complete failure, millions lost. Director Kim was demoted. Park, my former supervisor, was reassigned to a regional office. The entire division is being investigated. Min-jun paused. Your analysis was circulated internally as evidence of ignored warnings. Your name is attached to every correct prediction they dismissed. Marcus felt something unfamiliar, not vindication exactly, something quieter, confirmation. Send me the partnership proposal, Marcus said. I'll review it. Already sent, check your email. Marcus opened his laptop. The email was there, detailed business plan, financial projections, partnership terms, market analysis. It was good, really good. Better than anything Director Kim's team had produced. I'll have notes, Marcus said. I'm counting on it. Min-jun sounded like he was smiling. That's why I called you. They met 3 days later at a coffee shop in Gangnam. Min-jun brought contracts. Marcus brought a red pen and 30 pages of revisions. They talked for 4 hours. Argued about market positioning, risk assessment, client acquisition strategy. Min-jun pushed back on Marcus's more aggressive timelines. Marcus challenged Min-jun's conservative financial projections. It felt like the meetings Marcus had imagined when he'd first accepted the job in Seoul. Collaborative, challenging, real. You're intense, Min-jun said finally, reviewing Marcus's notes. You're cautious. Balance. Exactly. They shook hands. The partnership launched 6 weeks later. Small office, 2 employees, limited client base, but the work was theirs. The decisions were collaborative, and when Marcus spoke, people listened. Not because they had to. Because his analysis was accurate, his insights were valuable, and his voice finally reached ears willing to hear it. 3 months after launch, they landed their first major client. A European firm looking to enter Asian markets who'd heard about their combined expertise through industry networks. 6 months after that, they hired their 3rd consultant, then their 4th. Director Kim called once, asked if they were hiring, said he'd heard good things about their success rate. Marcus let the call go to voicemail. He never called back. The first year was survival. Marcus and Min-jun worked 16-hour days. Weekends didn't exist. Holidays were planning sessions disguised as rest days. Their office was a converted commercial space in Mapogu. 2 desks, 1 conference table, a coffee maker that broke twice in the first month. The walls were bare except for a whiteboard covered in client projections and market analysis. They couldn't afford decorations. They barely afforded rent. But the work was good. The clients were small, but they paid on time and listened to recommendations. A textile importer navigating tariff changes. A software startup exploring European distribution. A restaurant chain considering franchise expansion. Nothing glamorous. Everything essential. Marcus handled Western market analysis. Min-jun managed Korean client relations and government regulatory navigation. They split strategy development 50-50, arguing over every projection until they found solutions neither had considered alone. It worked. Until it didn't. The problem arrived in month 14. A potential client, major electronics manufacturer, the kind of contract that could triple their revenue and establish legitimate industry credibility. The initial meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday. Marcus prepared for 3 days, built comprehensive market analysis, competitive positioning frameworks, risk mitigation strategies, distribution channel recommendations. He walked into the conference room at their office at 9:45 a.m. The client representatives were scheduled to arrive at 10:00. Min-jun was already there, looking uncomfortable. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked. "They called this morning. They're sending a different team than originally planned." "Okay, and?" Min-jun hesitated. The senior director specifically asked if I would be handling the presentation alone. Marcus set his laptop down slowly. "What did you tell them?" "That we're partners, that the analysis is collaborative, that you're the expert on their primary expansion markets." Min-jun met his eyes. "They said they'd prefer to work with someone who understands Korean business culture more intimately." The words were polite. The meaning wasn't. "So they don't want to work with me," Marcus said. "They didn't say that explicitly." "They didn't have to." Min-jun's expression was pained. "I told them we're a package deal, that our partnership is non-negotiable, that if they want our services they get both of us." "What did they say?" "They're still coming, but Marcus, this contract could change everything for us. The revenue alone would mean nothing if we compromise on this." Marcus opened his laptop. "We present together. They can decide if our work is good enough regardless of who's delivering it." The client team arrived at 10:07. 3 representatives, all male, all Korean, senior director, financial analyst, operations manager. Handshakes were exchanged. Business cards were presented with both hands, the proper formal gesture Marcus had learned early. They sat. Marcus started the presentation. He made it 4 slides before the senior director interrupted. "Mr. Park, perhaps you could walk us through the domestic market positioning while Mr. Chen focuses on the international data." It was phrased as a suggestion. It functioned as a directive. Min-jun glanced at Marcus. Marcus kept his voice even. "The analysis is integrated. The domestic and international strategies are interdependent. Separating them would." "We understand." The director's smile didn't reach his eyes. "However, we find it more efficient to discuss Korean market strategy with someone who has deep local expertise. I've lived in Seoul for 3 years. I speak Korean. I've studied." "Mr. Chen," the director's voice was still polite, still final. "We appreciate your credentials. However, for a contract of this magnitude, we need to ensure cultural alignment in our consulting partnership." The room went silent. Marcus looked at Min-jun. Min-jun looked at the table. "Gentlemen," Marcus said quietly, "I appreciate you coming. However, this partnership operates on mutual respect and collaborative analysis. If that doesn't align with your preferences, we're not the right firm for your needs." He stood, closed his laptop, walked out. Behind him he heard the senior director say something in rapid Korean, heard Min-jun respond in a measured tone, heard chairs scraping. Marcus went to his desk, sat down, opened his email and started drafting a client prospecting template for smaller firms. The conference room door opened 15 minutes later. Min-jun emerged alone. "They left," he said. "I assumed." "That contract was worth 18 million won over 6 months. So I know." Min-jun sat down across from Marcus. "Why did you walk out?" "Because staying would have meant accepting that I'm only valuable when I'm invisible, and I'm done with that." Marcus met his partner's eyes. "If you want to restructure the partnership, I understand. You can pursue clients solo, keep the business, I'll." "Stop," Min-jun's voice was sharp. "You think I'm upset you walked out? You just lost a major contract because of me." "No. I lost a client who doesn't respect the partnership I chose to build." Min-jun leaned back. "You were right to walk out. I should have done it the moment they tried to sideline you." Marcus said nothing. "I was afraid," Min-jun continued. "Afraid of losing the money, afraid of starting over, afraid of being the Korean consultant who chose a foreign partner over easy success." He paused. "But that fear is exactly what kept me silent when you were being ignored at our old company. I won't make that mistake again. The business will survive on clients who value what we actually offer, or it won't." Either way, I'd rather fail with integrity than succeed by compromising yours. Marcus felt something unfamiliar, not relief, something heavier, appreciation that felt too large for words. Thank you, he said. Min-jun nodded. Now let's figure out how to replace 18 million won. They replaced it with 23 smaller contracts over the next 6 months. Import-export firms, small manufacturers, tech startups navigating international regulations. None of them glamorous, all of them willing to work with a partnership that didn't fit traditional expectations. The office grew slowly. They hired a third consultant, a junior analyst, an administrative coordinator who managed scheduling and client communications. Revenue stabilized. Then it grew. By year 2, they had a legitimate client base, repeat business, referrals, industry recognition from trade publications that praised their innovative cross-cultural approach to market analysis. Marcus's name appeared in articles. His analysis was cited in industry reports. His voice was no longer invisible. But the personal cost remained. His apartment was the same. His schedule was relentless. His social life consisted of networking events that felt like work and expat gatherings he rarely attended. His mother called every Sunday. Are you eating properly? Yes, Mom. Are you meeting people, making friends? I have colleagues. That's not what I asked. He couldn't explain that colleagues felt safer than friends, that professional relationships had clear boundaries and expectations, that personal connections required vulnerability he'd stopped offering after months of being dismissed. I'm fine, he said. You're lonely. I'm busy. Those aren't mutually exclusive. He changed the subject, asked about his father, his sister, the church, anything to redirect attention away from the life he'd built that looked successful on paper and felt hollow in practice. The breakthrough arrived in month 27. A call from an American firm, major consulting group with offices in 12 countries. They'd heard about Marcus and Min-jun's work through industry channels. They wanted to discuss acquisition. Not a contract acquisition. They wanted to buy the entire company. The offer was substantial, life-changing, the kind of money that meant Marcus could retire before 40 if he wanted. Min-jun was cautiously optimistic. Marcus was suspicious. Why now? He asked during their strategy meeting. We're stable but not extraordinary, we're profitable but not dominant, what do they gain by acquiring us? Asian market expertise, Min-jun suggested. Our client base, our reputation. Or they want our approach and plan to phase us out once they've extracted the valuable parts. That's cynical. That's experience. They met with the American firm's representatives 3 days later. The pitch was smooth, professional, impressive. They wanted to integrate Marcus and Min-jun's methodology into their global framework, expand their model across Asian markets, offer resources, infrastructure, and brand recognition. In exchange, they'd acquire full ownership. Marcus and Min-jun would transition to senior consultants, high salaries, benefits, stock options. No equity. No control. No partnership. You'd be employees again, the lead representative said with a smile, but very well compensated employees with significant growth potential. Marcus felt the weight of those words. Employees. After 2 years of building something that was actually theirs. We'll need time to consider, Min-jun said diplomatically. Of course, take a week, but I should mention we're talking to other firms in your market space. This opportunity won't wait indefinitely. After they left, Marcus and Min-jun sat in silence. What do you think? Min-jun finally asked. I think they want to strip mine what we built and leave us with impressive titles and no authority. The money would be compensation for surrendering everything we fought to create. Marcus looked at his partner. You want to sell. I want to consider it rationally. This is generational wealth, Marcus, for both of us. We could secure our futures, no more struggling, no more uncertainty. No more ownership, no more decisions, no more partnership. Min-jun was quiet for a long moment. Is that worse than the alternative? What alternative? Staying small, grinding, hoping we don't get overtaken by larger firms with more resources. Minjun's voice was tired. I'm not saying I want to sell, I'm saying I want to honestly evaluate whether pride is worth more than security. Marcus didn't have an answer. He spent the next 3 days running scenarios, financial projections, growth models, risk assessments. The numbers were clear. Selling made sense. Financially, it was the smart choice. But numbers didn't account for the feeling of walking into meetings where people actually listened, of making decisions without wondering if they'd be overridden, of building something that reflected his value instead of dismissing it. Numbers didn't capture what it meant to finally be heard. On day 6, Marcus called Minjun. I can't do it, he said. I can't go back to being an employee in someone else's structure, even a generous one. Minjun sighed, I know. If you want to sell your half, I'll find funding. Buy you out, you deserve the payout. I don't want to sell my half. Marcus paused, then what? I wanted to make sure you weren't just being stubborn, that you'd actually thought it through. Minjun's voice carried a hint of amusement. I already told them no this morning. You what? I called them, declined the offer, thanked them for their interest. Minjun paused. You were right, the money would have been compensation for surrendering what we actually built, and I'm not interested in being well compensated for giving up control of my own work. Not again. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. We just turned down more money than either of us will probably see again. Yes, we might regret this. Possibly. But you're okay with it. I'm okay with it. Minjun's voice was steady. We built this because we were tired of being dismissed. Selling to a firm that would turn us back into employees defeats the entire purpose. Even if we struggle. Especially if we struggle, at least we'll struggle on our own terms. They hung up. Marcus sat in his apartment, staring at the city lights outside his window. For the first time in 3 years, he felt something close to certainty. Not about success. About choice. Year 3 brought unexpected stability. Their client base expanded. They hired 2 more consultants, opened a second office space, published a white paper on cross-cultural market analysis that got picked up by 3 trade publications. Marcus's name recognition grew. He started receiving speaking invitations, conference panels, university lectures, industry roundtables. People wanted his perspective. Not despite being foreign. Because his perspective was different. It was disorienting. At a conference in Busan, he sat on a panel about international expansion strategy. The audience was mostly Korean business professionals. The other panelists were established consultants with decades of experience. Marcus was the youngest person on stage. During Q&A, a young woman in the audience raised her hand. Mr. Chen, you've spoken about cultural barriers in consulting. How did you overcome the initial credibility challenges? Marcus considered the question carefully. I didn't overcome them, he said finally. I stopped trying to convince people who'd already decided I wasn't worth hearing, and I found partners who valued competence over conformity. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then others joined. Not everyone, but enough. After the panel, the young woman approached him. I'm a Korean-American consultant, she said. I moved here 2 years ago. I thought understanding the language and looking Korean would be enough, but I'm American in ways I didn't realize, and people treat me like I'm pretending to be something I'm not. Marcus recognized the exhaustion in her voice. What field, he asked. Tech consulting. Market analysis. He pulled out a business card. Send me your resume. She looked at the card, looked at him, seriously. We're always looking for people who understand what it means to be underestimated, and who got tired of it. She took the card with both hands, bowed slightly. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, the interview process is brutal. She smiled, good. 3 months later, she became their 6th consultant. Her name was Jennifer Kim, Korean-American, Stanford graduate, 5 years of experience at major firms where her insights were credited to senior partners and her voice was consistently overshadowed. She fit perfectly. The 7th consultant joined 2 months after that. Nigerian, British education, specialization in African market expansion. He'd been working for a firm that kept him in research roles and never let him interface directly with clients. His name was Chiwetel. He was brilliant, abrasive, impatient with incompetence. Marcus liked him immediately. By year 4, the firm had a reputation. Not as the Korean firm with foreign consultants. As the firm that produced accurate analysis regardless of who was delivering it. Client acquisition stabilized, revenue grew consistently, they moved to a larger office, hired administrative staff, developed training programs for junior consultants. It looked like success. It felt like survival. Marcus still worked 60-hour weeks, still spent evenings reviewing analysis and preparing presentations, still struggled to explain to his parents why he wasn't married, wasn't settled, wasn't pursuing the traditional markers of adult stability. "You're successful," his mother said during one call, "but are you happy?" "I'm fulfilled." "That's not what I asked." He didn't have an answer. The call came in year 4, month 8. Director Kim's assistant. The same woman who'd delivered Marcus's termination meeting invitation 3 years earlier. "Mr. Chen, Director Kim would like to schedule a meeting. Are you available this week?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "What's the meeting regarding?" "A potential consulting contract. Director Kim specifically requested you." "Specifically?" The word carried weight. "I'll need to check my schedule," Marcus said. "I'll have my assistant follow up." He hung up, sat in silence. Minjun appeared in his doorway. "Who was that?" "Director Kim, from my old company." Minjun's expression shifted. "What does he want?" "A meeting, a contract, specifically me." "Are you going?" Marcus considered the question. 3 years ago he would have said yes immediately, would have seen it as validation, proof that he'd been right all along. "Now, send Jennifer," Marcus said finally. "She can handle the preliminary meeting, assess the scope, determine if it's worth our time." "You're not going yourself." "He fired me because I was inconvenient. Now I'm too busy to be convenient." Marcus returned to his computer. "If the contract is worthwhile, we'll engage, on our terms, otherwise he can find another firm." Minjun smiled slowly. "You've changed." "I got tired of performing for people who never planned to see me." Jennifer met with Director Kim 3 days later. She returned with a proposal. Major international expansion, European and North American markets, high-risk, high-reward contract. Director Kim's division was under pressure after multiple failed expansion attempts. They needed Marcus's expertise. Specifically his. The contract was substantial, 6 months, full consulting engagement, revenue that would boost their annual numbers significantly. And it required Marcus's direct involvement. Not as lead consultant. As the consultant. Director Kim had requested him by name. Marcus read the proposal twice. "What do you think?" Jennifer asked. "I think he's desperate." "That's not an answer." "I think he wants to hire the consultant he fired, because that consultant's predictions were accurate, and his failures were expensive." Marcus set the proposal down. "I think he wants to use my expertise to save his career after ignoring my expertise almost destroyed it." "So you're saying no?" "I'm saying we negotiate, heavily." Marcus looked at Jennifer. "Draft a counteroffer, triple our standard rate, require all strategic decisions to go through our team with full implementation authority, and add a clause that credits our firm prominently in all project documentation." "That's aggressive." "That's the price of being specifically requested after being generally dismissed." Jennifer smiled. "I'll draft it today." The counteroffer went out that afternoon. Director Kim's response came back in 4 hours. "Accepted. All terms. No negotiation. Complete agreement." Marcus stared at the acceptance email for a long time. Minjun appeared in his doorway. "He agreed to everything." "Everything? That's unusual. That's desperation. Are you going to do it?" Marcus closed his laptop. "Yes, but not alone, full team engagement. Jennifer leads European analysis. Chiwetel handles market positioning. I supervise and consult. We do this as a firm, not as individual contractors. He specifically requested you. He'll get our firm, which includes me. If that's not acceptable, he can find someone else. Minjun nodded slowly. You really have changed. I learned from someone who chose partnership over easy success. The project launched 2 weeks later. Marcus walked into his old office building for the first time in 3 years. The lobby looked the same. The elevator still moved too slowly. The 8th floor still had that particular smell of recycled air and ambition. But he was different. He wasn't arriving as an employee hopping to be heard. He was arriving as a consultant they'd paid premium rates to access. Director Kim met them in the main conference room. The room with the city view. The room where Marcus had been ignored, dismissed, and eventually terminated. Director Kim stood when they entered, extended his hand. Mr. Chen, thank you for taking this contract. Marcus shook his hand. His grip was firm, professional, not deferential. Director Kim, let me introduce my team. He gestured to Jennifer and Chiwetel. Jennifer Kim will handle European market analysis. Chiwetel Okonkwo manages positioning strategy. I supervise overall direction. We work collaboratively. All strategic decisions require full team consensus. Director Kim's smile was tight. I was hoping to work with you directly. You are, through our firm's methodology, which is collaborative. Marcus sat down without waiting for invitation. Shall we begin? The first meeting lasted 3 hours. Marcus let Jennifer and Chiwetel lead most of the presentation. He interjected only when necessary, provided strategic framework, challenged assumptions, asked questions that redirected discussion toward more productive analysis. He didn't dominate. He didn't need to. His team was exceptional. And Director Kim was forced to listen to all of them. Halfway through, Park entered, Marcus's old supervisor, the one who'd presented Marcus's analysis as his own work. Park stopped when he saw Marcus. Chen, he said carefully, I didn't realize you'd be handling this personally. Park, Marcus's voice was neutral. I'm not handling it personally. My firm is handling it collaboratively. Right, of course. Park sat down looking distinctly uncomfortable. The meeting continued. By the end, Director Kim had approved their preliminary analysis, agreed to implementation timelines, authorized resource allocation. Everything Marcus had recommended 3 years ago. Everything they'd ignored then. Everything they were paying triple rates for now. As they packed up, Park approached Marcus alone. Can we talk privately? Marcus glanced at Jennifer and Chiwetel. They nodded and left the room. What do you need? Marcus asked. I wanted to apologize, Park's voice was low, for taking credit for your work, for not standing up when you were being dismissed, for being a coward. Marcus said nothing. You were right about everything, the European expansion, the vendor issues, all of it, and I knew you were right, but I was too afraid to say it. Park met his eyes. I'm sorry. Marcus considered the apology. 3 years ago he would have wanted this, would have needed it. Now, I appreciate the apology, Marcus said finally. But it doesn't change what happened. You made choices that protected your position at the expense of truth. That's your burden to carry, not mine to absolve. Park nodded slowly. Fair enough. However, Marcus picked up his briefcase. If you're genuinely interested in learning how to prioritize accuracy over politics, my firm offers training seminars. You'd have to apply like everyone else. Park almost smiled. You're serious? Always. Marcus walked out. The project ran for 6 months. Every recommendation was implemented. Every analysis was accurate. The expansion succeeded. Director Kim's division was praised, his career was salvaged, his reputation was restored. And Marcus's firm was credited prominently in all internal and external documentation. On the final day of the contract, Director Kim invited Marcus to his office. The same office where Marcus had been fired. Sit, Kim said. Marcus sat. Your work exceeded expectations, Kim said. I'd like to discuss a long-term consulting arrangement. We can explore that, have your team send a proposal to our firm. I was thinking something more permanent, a senior director position, your own division, substantial salary and benefits. Marcus understood immediately. Kim wanted to hire him back. Not as a consultant. As an employee. Thank you for the offer, Marcus said. I'll decline. Kim's expression flickered. May I ask why? Because I'm not interested in being an employee in a structure that dismissed me when I was inconvenient and wants to hire me now that I'm expensive. That's exactly what this is, Marcus stood. 3 years ago I worked here, I provided accurate analysis, I warned about failures, and I was ignored, dismissed, and eventually terminated. Now you want to bring me back because my expertise is finally valuable to you. The position would be different, you'd have authority. I already have authority, in a firm I built, with partners who value collaboration over hierarchy, with a team that listens because the work is good, not because positions require it. Marcus walked to the door. Mr. Chen, Kim's voice stopped him. I was wrong about you, about how we treated you. I'm trying to correct that. Marcus turned back. You're trying to buy what you should have respected when you had it. He kept his voice even. But I'm not for sale, not anymore. He left. Walked through the office where he'd once been invisible. Past the conference rooms where his voice had disappeared into silence. Took the elevator down to the lobby where he'd entered 3 years ago full of hope, and left full of clarity. Outside, Jennifer and Chiwetel were waiting. How'd it go? Jennifer asked. He offered me a job. And I said no. Chiwetel grinned. Good. They walked back to their office together. Their firm, their work, their voices, all of them heard.